Welcome to part one. Let's continue where we left off. I was still trying to install Visual Studio again because it wasn't showing me some options. So yeah, hopefully now it's fine. I'm just installing this theme. Hopefully now it's fine. So yeah, and I noticed I made a mistake when it comes to determine damage function. They didn't necessarily say that it returns an integer zero. I guess I had mixed it up with this, and I thought I saw this part or this explanation say it should return an integer, but it didn't, an integer zero, but it didn't say so. They just said an integer. That just means that that's the return type for the function. And I should have noticed a hint here. They said it must, you see this keyword, it must be overridden. Remember what we talked about. That means you must use must override, which makes the class must inherit, meaning that it's abstract. In C++, that means you'd have to make this function a pure virtual function. In Visual Basic, that's called a must override function. That's what we call a pure virtual function in C++. So let me open this project, and then it's loading. And then let me put that on the side. Okay, it's waiting for IntelliSense to finish initializing. Okay, it's done initializing. So I'm going to minimize this. Okay, so let me see. Yeah. So I changed it to must override, like I said. And if you remember must override, it means that the function does not have any implementation, as you can see. It's like you're creating an interface, just only a declaration, no implementation. But then it must be overridden by the other classes, by the child classes. And in the previous video, I had started recording, and then I couldn't find that option. Then I had to restart recording. So I forgot that we needed to use this validate int function. So I made it protected because it's meant to be a helper method. Then I use it to validate everything that I get, any input. And as you can see, I'm getting all the information via the constructor. Even in my child classes, I use that validate int. So I said go to my base class using the my base keyword and get this validate int method and validate that integer. And then I did the same thing for magic points. And then I think I also did for the armor. Yeah, I also did for the armor. So go to my base class and call the helper method validate int and pass that armor to validate it. Remember, we shouldn't have, our application should have non-negative values. So now let's view our toolbox. So toolbox, and then we grab our tools. So we just need a few things, buttons. I think we're gonna use the text box. Yeah, we're supposed to use the text box. So I'm gonna search here button. Okay, it's still initializing a Visual Studio Text time. So grab this button. I do not need this. So take the button. So I won't put in any fancy things, any fancy colors to it. It will just be a basic GUI or graphical user interface. So there's then I need to open the properties. So right click and go to properties. Yeah, it wasn't displaying this, so I couldn't change the properties. So that's why I had to reinstall it. I tried to put back the settings to default and it didn't make much of a difference. So the text is button one, right? So the text should be enter number of heroes. So the user should enter the number of heroes. Then we capture the number of heroes, then we instantiate the array. Or we allocate memory for the array first, then instantiate it. So its name, the button will be called BT and num of heroes. That's what it should be called. And then for now, we're just going to implement that. So let's see how we're going to go about doing this. So I need to put in my option statements. So option statements. So I'm going to have option infer of, and then option explicit on, and then option strict on. So most of the things we'll be doing them on our own. And then here I'm going to declare instance variables. Why am I calling them instance variables? If you didn't notice, remember this is also declared as public class. So your form is actually a class too. So everything you declare here is it's instance variables for that form instance, right? So let's declare them. So we need the one that we need the most, right? It's for our heroes. So I'm gonna need to create a heroes array, and I'm gonna say as hero of type hero. And then I need to save or store the number of the heroes. So n small n heroes as an integer, right? This is for the number of heroes. So if you check our practical our practical, they said user should instantiate any number of heroes. Hence, I made it an array of heroes, a dynamic array, because they said any number. If they told us the exact number, I would have made it a fixed array and put in a number within this round brackets. So we are still on the right track following instructions. So using the instantiated heroes, simulate a battle, allowing the user to select 2 heroes at a time to face off. Please note that when one hero attacks another, it is natural for the recipient to defend themselves. The battle ends when one hero is left standing. After the battle, the victor may heal himself by a random value between 0 to 100. And please note that the hero's health should never exceed 100. You see, this is the only time they're not telling us that the hero's health should never exceed 100. So I went to my base class, hero, and then where I was adding, remember the heal method, that's where the hero heals himself. I had made a recording, and remember I said that I had to stop it and reinstall Visual Studio. So make sure I put in a comment here, validate to make sure that it does not exceed 100. So I said if it exceeds 100, then what should happen? Put it back to the maximum, which is 100. I simply added that check in there because that's what they told me in the practical. So now I'm gonna get the number of heroes. So n heroes is equals to c int, and we're gonna use an input box, right, to make things simple. So input box, enter the number of heroes, right? So this prompts the user to enter the number of heroes. Then we resize our array using the redim keyword. So redim heroes array to be of size n heroes, right? And now you might ask yourself, how are we going to instantiate all the different heroes, provided that this is what we have, like things like that. So there's the way, since we have one array, right, we're going to make use of two concepts, upcasting and downcasting. We'll get to I'll explain when we get there. So let's see. So remember they said it should allow any user to instantiate any number of heroes. Using the instantiated heroes, you should simulate a battle. So allow the user to select 2 heroes at a time to face off, right? So I don't know why they phrase it like that, but then they basically mean that you should allow the user to select a hero, right? The user should choose a hero. So what we can do is, remember there's multiple heroes. So that means we can have different types of heroes within this heroes array. So since we can have multiple of types of heroes, I'm going to do a for loop for each loop. So go through all of the heroes. So I'm going to say for I as integer is equals to 1 to 1 to what n heroes, and then next I, right? So we have that. So for I as integer is equals to 1 to n heroes. Then let's see. So allow the user to instantiate any number of blah, blah, blah. Yeah. So now remember what I said, we need to select or ask the user to choose which hero to instantiate. So we need within the for loop, right? I'm gonna keep prompting the user, which hero do you want to instantiate? Do you want to make a what is this? A what are the heroes again? A tank, or what's the other one? A tank or a wizard. So we must allow the user for those options, right? So prompt or ask. Remember, prompt is just a fancy way of saying ask. Prompt the user to choose which hero. This is the tricky part. The form, all the classes, creating classes is not bad. Everything else is, when it comes to the form, it's a bit tricky. So there's everything. So now I'm going to prompt the user, right? So let's prompt the user. So I'm going to I can create it as a local variable, meaning it's local within, excuse me, meaning it's local within this for loop or the button. If I declare it within the for loop, that means it only exists within the for loop. So I'll just declare it. I'm gonna call it dim choice as integer, and then I'm gonna say is equals to cint, and then I'm gonna use an input box, and then I'm going to say choose hero, right? And then after saying choose hero, so remember I want it to be on a new line. So let me open Notepad. So I want it to be on a new line. So I'm gonna use environment.new line. So remember I wanted to say choose, right? And then it moves to the next line. So that means I'm going to say choose, and then I'm gonna append environment.new line, right? And I need to append what's the next, what's the text on the new line, which will be for example, we'll say option one is a wizard, and then I need to append an environment, a new line again, like this, right? And then I append the second text, which is two, a tank. And then that's pretty much it. So let me do that. So what will happen is this environment new line that I'm using here, it will force it, or it will make it display in this way. See? So choose a hero, that's the text first, and then followed by the options. So I need to say and, so it's going to be quite a lot of code. So new line, and I'm going to say the first option is a wizard. So when the user enters a one, we should instantiate a wizard. And then environment dot new line, and the second text will be a tank, right? So that will be a tank. And then since we have created that variable choice, we are storing the choice now. We've just stored the choice, right? We've gotten the choice from the user. Then now we can use a select case. So select choice, or select case choice, and then we choose the case. So let's say case one will be that. And then we'll have case two, which will be something else. So case one, that's when we have to instantiate a wizard. You could have done it in a different way. You could have said number one is tank, number two is wizard. You could have done it in that way. That's fine. Me, I just decided to do it this way. It doesn't matter in what way you do it. But remember, we should make use of that one array. So how do we go about making use of that one array? We do what we call upcasting. You'll see how it's done. So remember, the first information that we need to take from the user is okay, health level we don't care about. So it's name, base damage, and experience. So I need to create, I'll use local variables for all of those. Because remember, before I instantiate any of the child classes, right, I need that information there. So okay, let's start with wizard. So wizard, remember, I need the name, base damage, experience, and max magic points. So I need those four things. So dim name, I'm forgetting this is what Visual Basic. So we capitalize. It uses an uppercase. It uses a, remember there's a lower camel case. It uses an upper camel case. So that means you capitalize the first letter of each word. So I'm gonna create name as a string because it's a string, right? And then since it's a string, I don't need to cast it. I just use the input box as it is. So I'm going to say enter the name for, but if you notice something, right, we're going to repeat ourselves. I'll make the error first, and then you see how to improve that code. Because if I just write it, you'll be like, well, I don't see why you did that. So let me do it. Let me make the error on purpose. So dim name as a string, right? Declare name as a string, and then enter the name for hero, followed by the hero number. So I'm gonna say and hero is our variable is I, right? So I, you could cast it. Yeah, we should cast it because remember we are using option strict on. So I'm going to cast it. So convert to string and a question mark. So please enter the name for hero number. Remember, I stores the current number of the hero. And then after hero, let me go back to wizard. We need to get the base damage, which is an integer. So base damage as integer. So we need to cast. So cint input box, enter the base damage, right, for hero, so that we know which hero we're currently entering. CSTR I, right, and then I need to put in that other bracket and question mark. And then the last one is experience. So experience as integer, not really the last one, but the ones that are inside the base class. This will be the last one. Then we enter the thing that's unique to wizard class. So enter the experience of experience for a hero, and then we combine the hero number. So and CSTR convert to string I and a question mark, right? And then dim max magic points. So max magic points as integer. Max magic points is equals to cint input box, and then we say enter the max magic points for a hero. Then you specify the hero number plus CSTR I plus the question. Okay, let me not mix it up. Let me not use plus. Let me use the ampersand. You can use plus to concatenate, right? It's up to you. And question mark. And then we are done. But then you notice something. Remember, for tank, we also have the name, base damage, and experience. So that would mean that in case one, I have to copy this again and repeat it for case two. You see, when you start repeating yourself, that's when you should ask yourself, isn't there a better way to do this? There's a problem. So what the most easiest and better way to do it is to put it outside the select case. So outside the select case, you always put the common things, basically everything that's inside the base class. Remember that we create the base class because there's common variables between the instances, and there's also common um, functions. So there's common data and common methods. So you see, it's better now. It's outside because it's common for both. And then within the select case, I ask information. I ask for information from the user. For what is I ask the information that's unique for that specific instance or that specific choice. If it's choice one, that's a wizard. What extra information that does wizard want? It's max magic points. How do you know that? Because the constructor requires it. It requires the max magic points. Then I'm gonna go back here, and then I also let me just continue with tank. Let me try to do them simultaneous. So with tank, the only unique thing is armor. So dim armor as integer is equals to c int input box, and then I'm going to say enter the armor for hero and specify the hero number and cstr I and question mark. Then now remember, based on the specific choice, if it's a one, then it's a wizard. So for the case one, or the first case, or number one, when the user chooses one, then what I'm going to do is I'm going to what is this? I'm going to okay, my brain just yeah. So I'm going to instantiate the different instances, right? So I need to create, because I can't just say heroes is equals to new, but I can't do that, right? I could, right? Let me show you how you can. You could do that. For those doing C++, you should understand that this is very similar to what I was talking about. Remember when you have to do delegation inside C++, remember in the constructor, you either you choose a random number to choose which one to instantiate, but remember you always use one variable, which is a variable of type base class. The same applies here. So I can say heroes, right? Like this, at that specific position I, and I say it goes to a new what wizard. You see that this, let me see. Okay, so you see that this won't complain, but let me pass all the details. So remember, wizard, it expects me to pass a name. It even shows here. You see, it highlights in bold the next required thing. You see, this is bold pink. So it expects me to pass a base damage. So base damage. And then when I put a comma again, it's going to highlight experience to show me that that's the next expected parameter. So comma, you see now it highlights experience. So I need to pass in the experience. And then comma, the last thing I need to pass in max magic points. And then you see that it won't complain. Why isn't it complaining? Because it's not complaining because if you have, remember in C++, if you, just like in C++, if, so this works because on the left-hand side, or LHS, on the left-hand side, I have a base class type, right? Base class type. And then on the right-hand side, I have a child class type. So what's going to happen is that it's going to ask this question. It's going to say right hand side is A, left hand side. It's going to ask that question. So basically, the object on the right hand side, is it A, the object on the left hand side, which is true because on the right hand side, I have a wizard. Isn't wizard is a hero? Remember, the array is of type hero. Yes, it is. So if that's true, then it allows it. So what happens here is now what's happening in this line of code, right? You need to comment it. This is now what we call upcasting. So this is upcasting. Why are we calling it upcasting? Because it casts up in the inheritance hierarchy. It's going to cast up. So let me show this um, using draw.io. It's going to cast up, right? So save on device, create a new diagram, desktop, save. So let me go to UML. Okay, I don't necessarily need UML, so let me do this. Okay, I don't actually need this. I just need the text. So I'm gonna use this text to demonstrate what I'm talking about, but it's very easy. This is very easy to see. So this is hero, right? We have hero. This is our hero base class, right? So I'll make it, let's say that color, and then copy, paste. So I have two types of heroes. I have a wizard, and then I have a tank. Then remember they're different, so I'll just use different colors. And then they inherit from this class. So remember the class, the inheritance symbol. Let me choose the arrow. Okay, there's the arrow here. So the inheritance symbol, it's an open triangle, right? It's not shaded in. So it's this. So as you can see, it's an open triangle. So that it means that it inherits, right? If you remember your UML. And then there we go. So I also need to change this symbol. So I'm gonna go here, then choose this. So you see they both inherit from the base class. So if you look at what's on the left-hand side, I'm saying create a new wizard. But then remember, in order for it to be stored here, it has to be cast. Or it has to be, what's that thing? What's another word? Converted. Remember when you have something like this, let's say I have a label txt, I have a text box like txt name, and I say dot text, and I want to store a one into it. It's going to complain because what's on the right hand side, it's not of type. It doesn't match the type or not. It's on the left hand side because what's on the left hand side is a string. And what I'm trying to say is I'm trying to say these two things are equal. A string and an integer is equal, which is not true. So we have to cast the integer or convert that integer to a string, meaning that this one should have a CSTR call, you should use a CSTR function. So that means that now when this is converted to a string, that means this would give me back a string, right? Meaning that they'll be equal. So the same applies to this line of code. When you say new wizard, it will indeed create a new wizard, but it will cast it. So you might ask yourself, where's the cast? Because I didn't write it. It does what we call an implicit class, a cast. So an implicit cast. An implicit cast is basically an indirect cast, right? Implicit or indirect cast. And if you remember, there's a direct cast in Visual Basic, so you should basically understand it a bit better. So so if I'm casting, look at what I'm trying to cast. It's a child. So now you start to understand why the word upcasting. It's a child. I'm trying to cast it to be a hero. But look at this line. Am I not going up the inheritance hierarchy? If let's imagine this is a road, they tell you go straight, and then when you see that symbol take a turn right, you turn right, and then you see that symbol turn left. So you see I'm traveling, going towards the base class, meaning I'm going up. You see that I'm going up, I'm traveling up, right? So I'm traveling up the inheritance hierarchy, so I'm casting upwards. So upcasting. You see that so that means since I'm upcasting, that means heroes will still remain as hero of type hero, right? It's still of type hero. Why are we going through this route? Because remember, you cannot instantiate heroes. It's an abstract base class. It's incomplete. You can say new hero here. Let me show you the error. It should show you an error. New cannot be used on a class that is declared must inherit, meaning that you cannot instantiate the base class because it's incomplete, it's abstract. So hence we take this long route because the child classes are indeed complete. Why are we saying that they're not abstract? Because they did override this function and they have actual code. So they are complete. And then we do the exact same thing under armor. So I'm going to say heroes, right, at I is equals to new armor. And then it takes in a name, takes in a base damage, and then it takes in not new armor, what am I saying? New tank. Yeah, I don't know what I was thinking. The experience, and then the last thing is the armor. And then done. So this is also app casting. So you need to write those comments to say so that they know that you know what you're talking about. So that's upcasting, because what's on the right hand side is a child class, and I'm trying to cast it to a base class, which is up, which is on top of me, right? So it's up, it's upwards, right? So upcasting. So we have this, and then we're pretty much done. The the only thing that's okay, downcasting. I don't. It depends on okay, downcasting depends on what exactly you want to display. So a function will output, okay. So they say that the battle ends when one hero is left standing. After the battle, the victor may heal themselves by random after the battle. Um oh, so that means when one, so I don't know how they want you to use, but there's an is alive method here. I don't know how exactly they want you to use it. But if you remember, there's an is alive method. Okay, it's in both of them. Yeah, which means that it's going to be receiving a damage. Then we also have the is alive method, and we also have the heal method. Mm, yeah, so let's do that. So let me see. So it allows you to choose them randomly. So that means in the seller case, we did not really learn randomly, but it allows you to choose between the two. If you look at here, they said two heroes at a time, so you choose, right? Maybe this the first. Let's say you have you decide to say four heroes, then maybe you make three tanks and one wizard, things like that. That's exactly what we're doing. Because why am I saying that's exactly what we're doing? Because remember, it depends on what the user enters inside choice. So you can enter all only wizards. It's up to you. You can do that, or you can enter only tanks, or you can mix both wizards and tanks. So we did solve that part. Please note that when one hero attacks another, it is natural for the recipient to defend themselves, right? The battle ends when one hero is left standing. So the question is, how do we write this programmatically, right? So let me think how we can approach it. So how can we go about approaching it? So they're telling us you can attack, right? So mm, okay, this is let me see. So option statements. So you have comments, you have polymorphism. Polymorphism, we're about to do that now. Okay, so yeah, I'll call this. Okay, I'll call this. I'll rename this, right? This is no longer actually entering the number of heroes. I'm going to say initialize heroes because this I have both code. I have code for getting the number of heroes and also initializing it. So I'll just call it initializing heroes. So we have this, and then so simulate a battle. So to simulate a battle, it's actually with 10%, right? Yeah. 10 marks, I mean, not really 10%, since it's not exactly out of 100. So how can you simulate this battle? This is quite a tricky thing. So this actually wants you to understand all the functions. But to simulate a battle is not, it's not too bad. The thing is understanding the different methods. So the battle ends when one is left standing. So I'm sure we have to use the is alive function. So remember, we can fight, right? There's what is this? We have okay, we have all those magic points. So the magic points, yeah, so the main important thing, right? It's these methods. Receive damage, is alive, right? And then heal. And the heal method should only be called if that person is no longer alive, right? So we need to be able to simulate the battle. So I can say so we need to receive. So when one decides to attack, one should receive the damage. Okay, so when one decides to attack, the one will receive the damage. And then we should do a while loop so to say while is alive. And then okay, and then we have to heal when the one of the heroes is unalive, right? So what I would do is let me go here. I need to create a text box. So I'm gonna put in a text box here, and then I'm gonna click on this arrow and make it multi-line so that it can be stretched like this. And then I'm going to stretch it like this. So there we go. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to create another button, and then I'm gonna call it simulate. It's called a simulate. Um, to simulate what? It's simulate fight or simulate a battle. Okay, so it's called simulate battle, and then its name will be btn simulate btn simulate battle. So this is going to simulate a battle. So remember, we're just getting in the input here, initializing, and we also did upcasting and things like that. So we are sorted there. Then the next thing that we need to do is simulate the battle. The question is, how do we simulate the battle? So please note that when one hero attacks another, it is natural for the recipient to defend themselves. Oh, there's a defend method. So let me see. So hero, we had a defend method, right? Oh, it's inside the child classes themselves. Yeah, I think it's inside the child classes. Let me check. But how can they defend? Oh, I missed the method. Did I miss it? Let me just double check. Yeah, I think I missed. Where's the method? Is it only in the child classes? Defend. So there's the wizard class. So the wizard class does not have a defend method. So if the wizard class does not have a defend method, it means that the person who's attacking is is wizard, I'm assuming, because wizard doesn't have a defend, because they told you here when one attacks, when one hero attacks another hero, it is natural for the recipient to defend themselves. So that means I need to use I need to attack, right? So restore can only be used once. Mm, okay, it can only be used once. So what we can do, right? How do we simulate this thing of it being used once? So because there's definitely marks for that. I can just create a variable, right, or a counter, and the first time it's used, I'm gonna do an if statement to check if this is the first time it's used. So um, is it or it's increase and restore magic points and increase magic points. Both should be used once, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come here and make a private counter variable, so underscore counter as integer. And then I'm going to initialize it to 0 when the constructor is called. So underscore counter is equals to 0. Then I'm going to scroll down, and then before restoring the magic points, there's one of two ways I can check it. I can check if underscore counter is equals to 0. That means that this is our first time doing it. Or I can just say if counter is less than or equals to 0. Or I can say another way, I can say while counter is not equals to 1, this means that this is our first time. Okay, this is not how you do it not equals to. You say less than greater than. So if it's not equals to 1, then we know that this is our first time. Then we can increment the magic points. So this will be done exactly once. But then after implementing the magic points, we need to increase our counter, right? So counter, I don't know. Can you say plus plus? Okay, you can't. So plus equals 1, so that to increase our count, so that next time the user tries to increase the magic points, it will check, oh, this is now equals to 1, then skips. It doesn't it doesn't do that. And they said we must do for both, right? So I can create another counter for the other one. So I'll call this counter restore, right? For the restore. And then so counter restore, and then I can also create another one. I'll call it counter. This is meant to increase points, right? So I'm gonna call it counter plus, right? Underscore counter plus, because it's meant to plus or increment the magic points, right? So I'm just going to use that underscore counter plus is equals to 0. And then for the counter plus, so this is counter restore. So I need to copy this and then put it here. And then I do the exact same thing here. So I'll just use a different approach here, a different condition to show you that there's many ways you can do it. So if it's equals to 0, and I know this is the first time it's being, this increased magic point is being called, then I'm going to cut this, and I'm going to put it here so that it only runs once. But then remember, I need to increment my counter plus. So underscore counter plus equals to 1. So add 1 to the current value of counter plus, which is 0 at the moment. It will be 0, right? So that means it will be 1. So that means when it comes here, you check, is counter equals to 0? No, it's 1. So it's going to skip, meaning that this will be executed exactly once. So we've handled that case. Let's see what else can we handle. So what are the magic points? Let's try to understand the logic behind it. So determine the damage. The damage of a wizard is, and then the parameter, increase the magic points by the provided value. And then the subroutine will increase the current magic points based on the following formula. The thing is, they don't really, this is a very, very vague paper. So, yeah, so let's try to understand at the top. Maybe they explained a bit better. So, a hero is created with a name and base damage, right? Blah, blah. And each hero starts with the full health and the entered experience level. The new heroes are being released, a tank and a wizard. A tank has an attribute which provides him an armor value. Or can there's also the armor thing, eh? But then I think the defend method uses that armor, right? Yeah, it uses the armor. Exactly. So you're going to use the armor. So determine level, it is that. And then let's see. Yeah, so the defend function actually uses armor because in order to defend yourself, you must use armor. So it makes sense. At the event, the game company will arrange free demos, blah, blah, blah. Your application is meant to handle the request status plates and will have to capture the information and store them in a file to process them later. So the file handling will get to that part. So let's try to simulate this. So how do you simulate this? I have a way of simulating it. I know one has a defend method. So that means that's the one who's being attacked. So that one, so we can use a while loop. And then once the battle ends when one is left standing. After the battle, the victor may heal themselves with a random, right? So they can heal themselves, but the hero's health should never exceed 100. So what should happen is you must receive a damage, right? So let's look at what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a while loop, right? So I'm going to do this. So we need to use a lot of so now I see why they talked about, because remember they talked about in the mark sheet they talked about downcasting. We're going to need downcasting because we need to call the specific methods in that class. And remember we upcasted, so that array is still of type hero, meaning that I can only access things within the hero class. You see, within the hero class, I can only access those things. And I would have to cast to get the specific things. For example, the defend method. All those things I need to get them from the specific class. But then you see this the is alive method, right? So is alive, where is alive? Yeah, so is alive. So while if the health level is greater than 0, then is alive is true. So it returns a true. So I need to use a while loop to say while is alive. So so basically before I do that, remember I need to go through each hero because there's multiple heroes here. So for int I is equals to 1, 2, n heroes. Next I, and then I'm gonna have a while loop. So while what? The heroes I dot is alive. Um, let me do this. How come it's not picking it up? While must end. Let me do this. Okay, so while dot is alive. How come is alive is not showing here? Did I make it protected? Maybe I did. Let me just double check. Yeah, I made it protected. Let me put back to public. So let me put back to public, even though I do call it in other methods, but you see that I need it outside of my class, so I make it public. So dot is alive. So while is alive, right? Meaning that one of them is alive. The thing is, it's tricky to know which one is alive. That's the thing. It's tricky because this returns is alive and you can't tell which instance is alive because remember this array stores two different instances. You see, we initialize it to two different heroes, right? Let me think how we can go about doing it. Yeah, but we have to use something is alive. The thing is, I don't know how to exactly approach this is alive function. How do we exactly approach it? Because it's two instances, but you see that I don't want you to stress too much on the logic. Because if you look at the actual logic, right, is okay, yeah, it is worth a lot. I thought it wasn't like really worth a lot, but oh, okay, it's not because here's just input and displaying the input, right? So here you just display and then get, and then here you simulate the the battle. So simulating the battle is only worth 10 marks out of 100. So if which is really small, so you can do that later if you're struggling to understand the logic part. So they must face off. Please note a hero attacks another. It is natural for the recipient to defend themselves. The battle ends when one hero is left standing. So when one hero is a live function, I have to use it in a clever way. So I need to say, mm, okay, they can defend themselves. There's the defend function, right? There's that defend function. Before I do that, I forgot to display. So before we simulate the battle, let me copy and do this and display the data, right? Simulate the battle. The logic should come after displaying or outputting the information. So the text should be display information. And remember, we have multiple instances, right? We have multiple instances. So we need to do, yeah, so now I see the downcasting part. There's another part for downcasting that we might have more later on, but we'll see. So this is the downcasting part. So here is time to display. So remember we have two instances, but there's multiple heroes, so I need to go through all of the heroes. For I is integer, is equals to 1 to n heroes, and then next I. And then remember we need to call the specialized methods, which is the display inside of each child class. But how will I know which child class it is? There's two ways you can go about it. You can use a try cast, right? Meaning try casting this, but then it's gonna return nothing if it wasn't found. So there's two ways to cast. You can, so let me put it inside this notes. So there's two ways to cast, two ways to cast. You can use a try cast like this, where you pass in the actual array and then the type you want to cast it to, which will be, the type will be, most of the time will be the class name in our case. And then there is direct cast, which is similar. It takes some type and then the class name, right? But then the difference between the two is that try-cast, it returns the the nothing keyword, which is nothing. It returns nothing when the instance was not found, which is better. And then this one returns an exception. So it throws an exception, not actually returns, it throws an exception. So we'll actually have to put this direct cast into a try catch block because we don't want this ugliness to be seen by the user. So we need to actually do a try and then catch as, so yeah, we need to do that. But in my case, I'll preferably use the try cast. You can use the direct cast, that's up to you, but I'll use the try cast. Why are we using why are we casting? Because remember, we need the actual method for that specific instance. If we call the instance inside of our base class, there's multiple ways, but then I prefer this way. So if we call the display method inside of our base class, you see that only have this information. We stop it is alive, but let's say we manage to find a wizard, but then we don't display the magic points and max magic points. Hence, it's a problem. So we need to use the display method itself within that instance. So we need to first find out if it's that instance. So how do you do that? If I recall, you can, let me check. Let me just check something. Instance. Oh, is it? Let me see. Light bulbs, they show you fix. Let me see. Control Alt. So it's Alt Enter. Okay, let me do this. Let me say then, and then I've just forgot. The thing is, it's different keywords in different languages. I'm trying to check it returns true or false. Mm, so go to definition. Yeah, I just want to check this thing. Okay, you don't have to worry about this too much. I'm just double checking something. Two string, blah blah blah. But I think it should work the exact way that I'm thinking. So let me see. Let me say, so why am I doing this? I'm doing this because there's multiple instances. I want to check what type of instance it is. Um, no, I think it's the is keyword. Is it? Start with is? No, it is not. Okay, it's not this one. So it has to be type of. Because I've been coding in a lot of C++ lately. Let me see. Is type of wizard? Mm, let me just Google it. I don't know. The instance of in Basic. I totally forgot what it's called. Is it? Okay, let me look at the Microsoft's official website. How to refer to the current instance of a base class. Not really current instance. Yeah, it's type of. So I'm right. Just to use the type of. So type of right is so this is how you use it. I just forgot the syntax. So I want to check if that instance is a type of. So I'm going to say so the type of this, meaning the data type of heroes, if it happened to be a wizard, is wizard. Right? If it is a wizard, then what should happen? I should cast it to a wizard. That means I've found a wizard. So I need to say, okay, but remember it's going to be cast back. No, let me see. Will it work? Let's try it. Let me do this. Let me say message box found it. Let me just try it first. Because remember, it's going to be cast back to its child class. So I don't know if the type of keyword is powerful enough to pick up that it was instantiated to a wizard or to a child instance, even though it was cast back to the base class's type. So I just need to double check that first. If it does work, then it's fine. We can do it this way. So I can initialize my heroes, right? So I'm going to say one hero. So I'll make it a wizard and then enter the name. I'm gonna name it Wiz. Base damage 20. I don't even know what values to put in here. Max magic points 90. And then Yeah, you see, it found it. Yeah, so it does work. So this is very cool. Even I don't. It's very cool because it's able to find it, even though it cast it back to the base class. It's able to find that it was instantiated to an instance of wizard, which is very cool. So if type of heroes is it was instantiated to a wizard, then I can safely know that it is, or I found the instance of wizard. Then I can cast now, right? There's going to be a lot of checks in place. So I'm going to do a try cast. So I need to store the answer. So remember, it does cast and it returns the wizard. So as wizard is going to return that wizard, and then I'm going to say it's equals to try cast, right? So try casting this or converting this. What am I converting? The heroes array, that specific index. What type? I'm trying to cast it to a wizard type, right? And then remember, try casting may return nothing or something. So I need to display only if it returns something. So I need to do another if statement, another check. So if something was returned, then call display method. So if something was returned, how do I check if something was returned? You simply say if wizard, it's in small letters, right? If wizard was equals to nothing. So there's only nothing keyword here. So if it was equals to nothing, it's not defined. Okay, it's not, yeah, you don't say equals to, my bad, you say is. So you say wizard is nothing, meaning that it's nothing, it's empty. But I don't want it when it's empty. I want it when it's not nothing. So I need to negate and use the not keyword and put everything within this and say if it's not is nothing. Remember negation. Minus one, it's positive one, right? So not nothing is something. So hence I'm going to use that logic. If it's not nothing, that means it's something. That means that we did manage to cast this to a wizard. And if it's nothing, then we just skip. You see that it doesn't crash. It won't throw an exception. We don't want the exception. So if it does, then I can what? I can safely call the display method for wizard. So I'm going to say, and remember, I need a text box. So I need to give that text, I need to output it in the text box. So in the text box, I need to go to properties and then give it a name, txt output. So this will be my output for my program. So when I say txt output dot text, meaning the text inside, insert this as text. What should I insert? Wizard dot display method, right? So this will call the specific display method inside wizard. Just to have to for my code to be clean, after each display, I'm gonna put in an end of line character. So environment dot new line right? And then I pretty much do the exact same thing, but then I need to use an else if. So else if this wasn't the case, then check if I found a tank. So check if it's is tank, and then we pretty much do the same thing here, but then now it's a tank. So tank is tank, and then of type tank, and then tank, and then tank. And then that's pretty much how you display. So it'll, even if I have multiple, whether I have tank or here or wizard, it'll call the right display method. So this is typically how you're always going to display. So I would say, let's say we have 3 heroes. You see that it will choose wisely. So the hero name, the first one is a wizard. Base damage, experience, max magic points, let's say 78. And then the second one, let's say we're creating a tank. And then I'll call it tanky. And then 45 experience. I forgot And then let's create another tank, right? U. And then now we can try to display. So I'm going to click display. And then, oh yeah, now I see what was going on. What is going on? So you see what's the issue here? The issue is that it's deleting some things, right? Some things are being deleted, but look at we have this weird space here. If you check here, I can safely fix that. It's not really an issue. See this weird space here. So I put it, I think I put in an environment new line after what is after the display method for my base class. So I'm using the wrong, you're not supposed to use text. You're supposed, because it overrides, it's going to keep overriding. I want to append, so txt output dot um append text, right? I don't want it to override, I want it to append. So I was using the wrong approach. So append text and then delete that and then cut this txt output dot append text and then append that text. So I want it to keep on appending. I don't want it to delete. So that means in my hero, yeah, remember what I was saying, I have this environment new line. So I think that's causing an issue because that environment, this, or you see this function, it already returns an environment new line. And then it appends another environment new line. So there's that weird space in between. So I won't append the new environment new line here inside my base class. I'll make that slight variation. Then you see that my code is going to work properly. So for those who think this is not actually a past paper, this is a past paper. Don't expect the video to be titled past paper. And then okay, I think I chose one. So let me stop it from running. And okay, I think I chose three. I don't know. I was still in my head. So one, I'm gonna call this guy Wiz, and then I don't even know if I'm putting the right values. Tanky, then let's say wizard again. So we expect to have two wizards and one tank. Okay, wrong name, but it's fine. Let's display. So there is it appends. You see now it displays perfectly. So is alive, yes. It always starts as alive, so that's not really an issue. But then we have all these values. See these values here. Yeah, informatics demands quite a lot if you don't understand what you're doing. So you see, we need to format the level and the defend. So we need to format level, defend. Yeah, level and defend. We need to format them, round them to two decimal places. I don't think they stated they could have, but they expect you to round it off. Yeah, they expect you to round it off. So let me go and round it off. So it's level and defend. So level, which is this call to this function you see here, where I call the determine level. I need to format it. So I need to format it to up to two decimal places, right? So it should round up to. So the expression is this function, comma, and then the string. If you want it to round up to, right, meaning up to, they will tell you if it's up to. You use the hash symbols, right, to say up to. To exactly, you're going to say hash dot 00. That's how you make it exactly two decimal places. So yeah, I would choose up to two decimal places for the determine level, because that's the level, and then defend, which is the tank, because the tank is the one that's supposed to defend itself. Then this, I was supposed to cast this to a string because defend is a double. Yeah, I made a mistake there. But then it's fine. I'm gonna use the format because remember format returns a string. You see, it returns a string formatted. So I don't have to use CSTR. Then I'm gonna say dot hash hash, and then done. And then I have casted, I've displayed. Now we need to simulate the battle, right? So what I can do is I can simulate and then output in a button to say who won, right? I can do that to simulate the battle. So what I can do is when the button is clicked, what I can do is I can say message box, and I'll say um battle has started, right? And then they're going to battle here, and then at the end I'm going to output who won, right? So this is the tricky part, but then I feel like let me see how much time. Okay, it's already an hour. So let me do file handling. Let me do file handling. The simulate battle part, I'll see if I'll do it in the next. I don't think I'll do the next video. But then you're supposed to find a clever way to use this alive method. And if you need to check the instances, right? So you need to use that type of to check if what type it is. And then if it's that type, then you're gonna cast it, and then if it's that type, let's say for example it's of type tank. That means tank is the one that must defend itself since it has a defend method. So that means it's the one that's being attacked. So you call the defend method if it's an instance of tank. So yeah, it's pretty much that, and then you find a way eventually to generate a random, but that's not the important marks there. That's 10%. I want the file handling part. So you see the file handling part, it's 10 plus 10, which is 20, plus 12, which is 32. So it's 32 marks. So 32 marks compared to the 10 marks, I would rather go for the 32. So let's do the 32. So let's do the file handling. So we need to save all of our. So I'm going to create a button and call it save to file. So the text will be save heroes to file. Right, because we need to store them and read them later. So btn heroes, right? So let's explain a bit about what is file handling. So file handling, the main purpose of file handling, right? And remember, I use TriCast. So um, remember when I downcasting, yeah, I forgot to add the comment. So this is what we call what is this downcasting? You could let me see. I think you don't necessarily have to do this. Yeah, this is just me being extra. I don't think you have to do this. Let me show you why I say so. Because they want you to demonstrate what is this? They want you to demonstrate polymorphism. It will run behind. So I've actually implemented the code that runs behind scenes polymorphically. Let me show you. So all you have to do is just do this and say heroes I dot display, right? And then done. So you ask yourself, how will it know which display method to call? That's polymorphism. So there'll be polymorphism, right? Polymorphism. So I can show you I can do this, right? So let me where is it? Okay, yeah. So let me comment out this code, right? So I'm going to select this and then comment it out. This is actually the code behind the scenes. Okay, not end sub. So this is code behind the scenes, but then you need to demonstrate polymorphism. So yeah, I've encoded in Visual Basic in a while. So 1 to n heroes. It's exactly the same thing in C++, just that I haven't coded in a while. So that's why I was making those small mistakes. So output dot append text. Append means add to what's currently there, so that it keeps on adding and it doesn't delete what's already there. If you just say dot text, it'll delete. Then I'll call the method and then environment. You can just use and say environment dot new line. So this will be what we call polymorphism. Why polymorphism? Because the hero's display function will take in many forms. It will call the display for wizard, then one moment take call the display for hero, for tank. You know which one to call, but the code that's actually behind the scenes is this. I didn't know that I was inherently implementing the code that gets executed when this runs. I wasn't paying attention, but yeah, you can do this. This is what actually happens behind the scenes. But since now you understand the code, you can even type it yourself. But in order for you to get the marks, don't type it so that it actually demonstrates polymorphism. So I'm going to say name and say Wiz. Then 2 is tank. So I want to create different ones. So tanky. And then display information. And you see that it knew that it has 2 wizard and that, which is very intelligent. So it's actually doing polymorphism. You see, that takes in many forms. It knew that it should call the wizard display method, and then all of a sudden it also knew that it should call the tank method. And you notice that we are now rounding up to two decimal places. Then you can simulate the arrow, then you can save the files. So I was inherently implementing the code. But you should actually, to get the full marks for polymorphism, you should leave it like this. It should know which method to call. So we have this. So we are done with this button. So now I need to go here and click my save heroes. So I need to save the heroes. So let's explain a bit about file handling. Mm, You could, okay, I don't know exactly how they want you to do this polymorphism thing. I'm not sure exactly how, but you could. There's another way. I think I'll choose that other way in the paper. The thing is, I don't know. You have to confirm with how they want you to, how they've been showing you in tutorials. But this is how you should demonstrate polymorphism. So I'm gonna delete this. The issue is now I can't demonstrate what is this? I can't demonstrate downcasting. That's why I'm asking how this is my way, right? Another way that I'm thinking, right, is to leave it as it is, like this display method as it is, like this, and then within the and not override it, right? So let me show you what I mean. So let's do. So I need to change it because now I see you guys won't get marks for downcasting because there's actually no downcasting here. You see, there's marks for downcasting. I know it's only worth 2%, but that 2% can make a huge difference. So I need to now remove overrides here. So that means this display function is actually different from each other. But it's fine. You could, it's still fine. You can, let me see. Shadows if you want to overload. Oh yeah, so you see, it actually forces me to make it overridable. So yeah, it forces me to make it overridable. So there's multiple ways. Let me check here. But the function will output the following multi-line string. So this followed by that. Yeah, I'm just going to leave it like this. I guess maybe we can try. I guess downcasting part to be this part here. When you're simulating and you call the right methods. So you need to check if it's instant type of, or another language, in other languages it's called instance of. Then you can simulate the file, but it's fine. Just leave it as it is because, like I said, it is like I picked it up before it even gave me a warning because we are creating a function with the exact same name, so you have to actually make it overridable. It even shows you if you remove the overrides. It advises you that you should make it overridable. So they were actually also testing you overrideable there. So they want you to see they want to see must override and overrideable. So they're actually testing you everything, if you think about it. So we actually need to write two types of codes. We need to save the heroes to the file. So let's think about file handling. So file handling is sort of like this, right? So you have your file over here, right? This is your file here. You can think as this as your file, right? It's sitting on C drive, on the downloads folder, wherever that file is sitting, there's your file. And then on the other side, you have your Visual Basic program, right? So I'm going to do this, then scroll down like this, and then stretch it a bit. So this is your Visual Basic app, right? Your Visual Basic application. So your task or what you're trying to do, right, is that you're trying to make Visual Basic app read your file. So this file, it's obviously going to have a lot of information, right? So for example, you can have your name, whatever, but it's a file. It's sitting on your file explorer. So we need a way to communicate to the file. So the way it works, right? You can view this as sort of like, let me see if this, what I'm looking for will be there. Nah, it's not really there what I'm looking for, but yeah, it's not really there. It would have been better to see if you had seen it in action, but it's fine. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do this and then do that, and then do this and then copy, paste, and then do this. So you can imagine this is in the middle here. This is like a road. Think of it as like a road, right? Let me draw it sort of like a road. So we need that middle part. So that means I need to move this a bit down. Yeah. So imagine this is your road, right? So let me make it different color. So imagine this is your road. So that road, we need to establish this road, we need to create what we call a file stream object. So this road is like the file stream. That's the middleman. So the file stream object, right? So the file stream object, what it does, right? It helps us to facilitate this reading of data. So for example, remember file stream, it's going to help us read it in terms of bytes, right? And then we have to cast it right data type. So by bytes it means zeros and ones, because remember that's the language of the computer. So these zeros and ones, right? So let's say 011, something like this. So these zeros and ones, right, will be read from the file. Let's say they're sitting in the file here, right? They're sitting on the file there, zeros and ones. Then what happens, the file stream, we can use the file stream to read, which means that the file stream will store these zeros and ones, right? So it's sort of like the bridge or the road that the zeros and ones will travel from. So it will come from this file, right? And then travel. Okay, let me delete this and then take the arrow from here to there. So it will come from there and then travel via the file stream or the road. And then eventually it gets to our application. And then within our visual application, we can change these values, right? So let's say it was 010101. And then visual application, or let's say we're just reading it. So when you read it, it'll be stored like this, right? So now we've read it, but remember, we're not the computer. We don't speak zeros and ones. So we need to cast or convert to the right type. So that's when before this zeros and ones, right? Before they get passed to Visual Basic, they need to be cast. So we pass it inside a program to cast. So we need to do a try cast, right? To cast it, meaning to convert it to the right type. So there's quite a lot of layers involved. So do this, let me use that. So there's quite a lot of layers involved. So it gets passed via the try catch, right? which tries to cast that specific thing. Right? So it tries to cast, and then once it's been cast, it converts to the right object. Let's say it's a tank. So when it's now stored inside your Visual Basic application, it's now getting stored as a tank. If it's a, it depends on what type we're reading. If it's a, what is this? If it's a wizard, then it will cast it to a wizard. It depends on the type. Okay, so let me make these a bit smaller so they can you can see them as like literally traveling, going down the road. So you see, there's the data. So this data, I'm going to make it blue like that. So this data, it's binary zeros and ones, right? They get read by the file stream. So, okay, they don't really get read by the file stream, but the file stream helps us to facilitate the connection. I was forgetting a very important piece of data. So the file stream helps us to connect. You see these edges here. You see this connection, me connecting there and connecting there. It's the file stream. Its only purpose is to facilitate connection. That's it. Then we have a binary formatter. It's in the name itself. It's to format binary. It's to deal with formatting binary, whether you're formatting to binary or formatting from binary. So we use a binary formatter, right? And then we format to or from binary, right? So this binary format is the one that actually handles this. You see, it reads in those. So let me put it there at the top. So it travels, right? It travels, and then we format. Okay, let me do this. So we do. Come on, that's quite a lot. So we do this, and then we pass the binary zeros and ones via the binary formatter. Right? Why? Because we want to format it to the right type. And then after formatting it, what happens is that it's going to format it into what we call an object. So an object, right, inside Visual Basic, an object you find out that it's similar to what is computer science 2A, which is of which we taught Java. So all classes, right? All classes indirectly or what is this? Implicitly, the right term for it is implicitly inherit from the object class. You see that it's even highlighting to show that it's a reserved keyword. So it returns an object, meaning it can be any object, right? Remember, object, the way I like to view object, it's like the founding ancestor. So it's like in your family tree, object will be the very first person to be born within your bloodline. So you see that it's very generic, it's far. We need to cast. Oh yeah, so this is the part. Yeah, oh this is fine. So we need to cast. So it can be, yeah, so technically we're going to downcast technically, but yeah. So we need to cast down. Yeah, yeah, it is downcasting. We need to cast down because this will be the founding ancestor, right? Or the first person within the family family tree, right? So we need to cast it down to the child class. So that's downcasting because if object is my founding ancestor, that means it's my parent. Basically, you can view object as like for Zulus, right? For Zulus out there, it's ukoko. Object is ukoko. Ukoko koko. Ukoko lokuqala. The very first ancestor within the family tree. That's object. But we need to cast down because we didn't store ukoko. We stored a descendant of object. We didn't store the object class, right? That's if you or we're not going. Okay, okay, this is in terms of reading, right? So I'm still explaining reading. We didn't store. We should obviously store the tank and the wizard. So we didn't store object. So we need to cast downwards from that object class to tank. So that's when the try cast gets used. So after passing here, it's going to pass it down to try cast. So this will return, binary formatter would return a, what is this? An object. But then we cast that of type object to downwards to a specific descendant. So this is pretty much the flow. I will save the diagram, right? I don't see it that too complex or too important, but I will save it for the sake of saving it, right? So file stream helps us to establish the connection. So it's like a path. But remember, since that connection has been established, we need to cut that connection. So we must always close the connection. So we must always close our file stream object. So remember, file stream, it's literally file stream like this, is stored inside system.io, right? For input output. Our IO is input output, which is true because we're inputting and outputting to a file. The only difference is that it's to a file, it's not to the console. You've never done console in VB, but you know what you should know what console is. Console is just the terminal. For those who didn't explain that, you understand terminal inside in ComSci 1A and 1B. So file stream, then we need a binary formatter, right? Which is I don't know the full name, but I know it ends in formatters. I'm just going to import. I have the luxury to use IntelliSense. I don't need to cram all of these things. You might not have IntelliSense, but we'll see. Yeah, so all this time I was worried about downcasting. So we actually do downcast when you do file handling, when you actually read from the file. But and to save to the file is one and the same thing. Just that it's now in the opposite order. You go from tank and then you travel via the file stream and then it gets the binary formatter converts it to zeros and ones and then they get stored into the file. And don't forget to close your file stream. Okay, cut the connection. So I'm gonna save as PNG, then desktop, and then I'm just gonna call it file stream file stream diagram. For those who are always asking for things, and I'll upload the code in the description of the video. This code that I'm writing right now. Since I'm not gonna do I'll give it to you as homework. This battle has started, but because if I try to implement it, there's going to be a lot of thinking involved, and then the videos become even longer. It's already at 1 hour, 33 minutes, and I haven't done file handling. So I'll just leave it to you guys to implement this part. So we have this, so BTN heroes. I will implement the other one, the full paper, the next paper, but for now, I'm not going to touch that. So we need to save the heroes to the file, right? So remember when you create a file stream object, right? A file stream object, when you create it, it takes in 3 parameters. We have location, and then we have the mode, and then we have the access. So for the location, it's in the slides. I'm basically doing what's in the slides. Go read your slides. This is a string, right? Which stands for the file name. And if this string, if we only pass in the name of the file, that means it's saved locally. Meaning that in the same folder is our project. But if they tell you explicitly which folder to save it in, then you have to specify like C drive and then backslash to that. You have to do all of that. But for now, most of the time it'll just be within the same file. And then mode, you can either create or open. Yeah, is it create? I think it's create and open, right? Yeah. So there's multiple ones, right? There's open or create and create new. There's create and then create new and then open or create. There's all of these modes, right? We're only gonna use create and open for simplicity. And it is even in the slides, they told you that you're only gonna make use of those. And then access, this will be whether to read write to the file, or you want to do both read and write. It's called read write. So we mostly gonna use create, open, read, write. The rest we won't touch because that's your curriculum. You shouldn't be touching any of these two and this because you need to be very careful if you're using those. So since you're first years, they don't want to make you think too hard. So let's save the files to the record. So remember what we are, and then okay, there's something else missing. So remember the binary format, right? So let's say I have a binary format, right? And I've saved it as BF, right, as binary formatter. So how to format, right? There's two methods that you can call. The first one is the first one is a subroutine and the other one is a function. So there's the serialize. You can say BF dot serialize. Serialize, it means that convert it to binary. So convert it to binary or save it to a binary file. Save it to a binary file, right? That's basically what the serialize method means, right? So here you just pass in the object that you want to serialize. So okay, I'm missing something, but I'll see when you get there. And then we have the function, which is dot deserialize, right? Meaning to do the opposite of serialization, meaning that I need to read the bytes or the zeros and ones. So we're gonna use those two methods when it comes to file handling. So let's do that. So save zeros to a file, and then we need to have another one to read. Let's see what the practical says. Do, 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 do. Okay. At the end of the day, all the information or all the hero information will be saved to a file and sent off for printing. You may assume that the file is saved in the local folder of your Visual Basic. They say it's saved in the local folder. So that means when we create the link, when you link our file stream to our file, we only pass the file name. That's what local folder means. If they told you, then you have to copy that full path. You may also create the file and save all the object without having to create, close, open, write, and close again. So that means they want you to right click and add the file manually. Don't this they say they don't want you to keep creating it. So they said you can save all the objects without having to create, close, open, write, and close again. So they don't want you to do all that whole process of creating. They want you to just open the file and then read or write, and then that's it. So they want the file to be added manually. So that's pretty much what they're saying. And they told you that exception handling is not required. That's why I didn't do try catch. What is it? Direct cast, because direct cast returns an exception. So I chose try cast, and I'll use try cast here. You'll see. Yeah, we'll do downcasting. I'll use try cast. So yeah, let's save all the records to the file. So before we do that, I need to, well, what's the other one? Let me check the question. So determine the tank with the highest level and display. Yeah, so we need to check, also you need to check the tank with the highest level, then display it. So that means I need to read from the file and then find the tank with the highest level. So I need to call this tank with read text with the highest level. I'm gonna call it retrieve or retrieve highest tank level. And then I'm gonna call it btn highest tank, btn highest tank and then that, and then click this, and then save all. Don't forget to save all of your changes, right? Whenever you make changes. So another thing, right? When you serialize, that thing needs to be serializable, right? Remember, to serialize is to write it to a binary file. But in order to write that thing, it needs to have the permit. It needs to be. You need to grant it permission. You must grant it permission to be serializable. Serializable. You need to grant permission to be for it to be serializable. By serializable, for it to be able to be serialized, meaning for it to be able to be written to a binary file. So yeah, that's what we need to. How do we do that? You simply go to your record structure of your file or your class right before the public, or yeah, public, right before, or private, right before public or private. You say serializable like this, and then let's say public class tank. So this gives the permission to say that this tank class can be serializable. So I need to do that. So I need to go to my child classes and say serializable, right? And you see this thing in Java again next year. So you better master what's going on, everything that's going on here, because it's pretty much be repetition. So serializable, meaning that it can be serialized. And then I'm gonna go back to my form because I wanted to avoid those errors. Then now I can save to the file. So before I do that, I need to create my variable. So I need to create two things: a file stream object. So fs as file stream, right? And then you'll see that it's going to me. I've IntelliSense. I just press Control Backspace. It should show me this, and then I need to import it. Let me try to double click and then double click and import. It imports for me, which makes my life easier. For you, the IntelliSense might be disabled. Just pray it's not. Then private BF for binary formatter, because we need to format it to binary as binary formatter. There it is. So you see it's system.runtime.serialization.formatters.binary. I'm just gonna press enter, should import for me. Done. So there it is, it should import for me. And then now we can instantiate our instances so that we write to the file. So I'm going to say file stream fs, and I say it's equals to a new file stream, right? Which takes in two things. The file, so instantiate a new instance of file stream class for the file handle, which with the specified read or write permissions, right? So I need to pass in the first thing. What's the first thing? It's the file name. So it's a string, it can be anything. And then the second thing is the mode. And then to specify the file mode, right? You say file mode, right? File mode. And there's also append to add to what's already there. You can use that. So I want to use open and then comma file access, right? Dot write, because I want to write to the file. So we're taking three things, but then remember I need to create my file because they told you to create it manually. So if you read the instructions carefully, they showed you somewhere how to name your file. If I'm not mistaken. Mm, da, 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 da. On this paper they didn't. Okay, this was a prank, so they didn't tell you. Okay, so since in this paper they didn't tell you, but then they told you that you shouldn't have to create and close and open, so I will create it. It's fine. They didn't give me the name, right, to give it. So I'm gonna right click and say add. I think you can add in here. Add new. You can say new item. Hopefully you can create a file. Show all templates. Let me see if we can create a file. Okay, let me see. Code file, text file, yeah. So you can see you can create a new text file. So I'm gonna create, okay, not really a text file, but because we're dealing with binary, right? So you have to save it as dot dat. So I'm gonna call mine heroes dot dat, but I'm gonna choose the text file part. Then I'm gonna click add, and then I should see a heroes dot dat saved here. You see it's empty at the moment. We need to put it in binary code there. So I need to pass in the name here. So heroes dot dat, which is the file name. And then since I have the file name, now I can write the file. How do you do that? But remember, always close the connection, fs.close. So always close the connection. Because if you don't close, it will still be using your resources even after you've stopped running Visual Studio. It might still be running at the behind the scenes and using your memory. So you don't want to do that. You want to cut the connection. So cut the or close the connection. So since we've made our tanks serializable, we need to serialize them. So for safety measures, right? Since this is of hero type, I'm gonna also make this one serializable. Okay, my battery. So let me plug the charger. I'm also gonna make my base class serializable, right? Because all of my children inherit from this, right? So I'm also gonna make it serializable. So we have the file mode, then we've set everything to write. So the file needs to exist first. Remember, it's saved locally. So if it doesn't save locally, I would say C drive and then backslash, and then let's say users, and then backslash that user, whatever that's, or maybe so let's say they say save it in a data folder. You say data backslash like this. But in our case, it's saved locally, so no folder. You shouldn't specify any folder name. And then now I need to write to the file. So write to the file, which is as easy as me saying bf.serialize, which takes in two things, right? The file stream. Yeah, I had forgotten that it needs the file stream. So it needs the stream, which is fs, our file stream, followed by the object, which is heroes. But remember, heroes is an array. So I need to put this code within a for loop. So I need to go through all of my heroes as integer is equals to 1 to n heroes. And then next and then I put back that code, and then it's done. It serializes it. And then they said you should display the one with the highest, blah, blah, blah. You could do this, right? You could minimize this because either way, this would be, it'll make it'll become scrollable if there's multiple data in here. So that's fine. So we are done with writing to the file. That's pretty much what you do when you write to the file. Done. So this is all you do to write to the file. And then save everything because we are serializing it, we are converting it to zeros and ones, right? And then we write to those zeros and ones to the file. You see, when you run, your file won't be readable. It'll be weird text because it's binary. It's in the language of the computer of which we can't speak. So once you've written to the file, they also want us to retrieve tanks from the file. Do you see, especially they said tank, specifically tanks, right? Remember, there's going to be multiple tanks with the highest level. So we need to call the tanks with the highest level. So that means I need to call determine level. And determine level is inside of my child class. So I need to cast. Because this array, I need to downcast because this array contains multiple heroes, right? So I need to specify which hero am I referring to. So new file stream, and then the file is heroes dot dat, And then the file mode, what mode are we opening the file? What mode is the file? We are this is the mode of open. So you can't use open if the file does not exist. So it needs to exist. Hence we created it manually. And then when I open the file, what do I want to do? What rights do I want to have? I want to have the privilege of reading. So read, because we are reading from the file. And then always close the connection. So always close the connection. And then since we do not know, because they always tell you that you do not know how many were saved, right? Which is true. I mean, in your case, you'd be like, well, I have N heroes there, but well, you won't get full marks because they said you should. They want you to assume that the number of heroes or that those number of objects are not known. So how do we achieve that? We do a while loop. We say while fs position dot position, right? Meaning the current position I'm in inside of my file stream. Remember, this is a sequential file, right? It's like an array. So let me sort of like demonstrate what's going on. It's an array. So it's like, for example, let's say I have tank one, right? It's sequential. So I have tank one. Okay, let me cut this and then make it orange. And then let's say this will be tank two, right? And then just a few, and then I'll make this one wizard, and then I'm gonna use a different color here. I'll make it brown. So you can imagine they are sequential, right? They are in this order, one after the other. And then we have this arrow, right? So when you go to when you read the file, it's sort of like has this arrow. Where's this arrows here? So it is an arrow. You can imagine that arrow is facing downward, right? There's the arrow. So that arrow, to refer to for us to refer to that arrow, we can refer to it by saying fs dot position, right? To say where I currently am, right? So let me make this. So while my position, and remember your file store as a specific length, right? So think of it. Let me choose a different color here. Let me make this blue. So this is your FS position, right? Meaning where you currently are. So this will be FS dot position, right? Meaning the position in your file. Or you can view it as like the pointer. The pointer is currently pointing here, and then it keeps on shifting like this. It shifts, and then it shifts. But then it will keep on shifting while you see that if we don't specify where it should stop, you see that it won't stop. It will even go beyond. So in your file will have a length, right? The fs will it will have a length, right? So this will be, think of this as fs dot length. Yeah, I think it's called fs dot length. Okay, let's make it green. So this will start here, this fs dot position. It reads to this, and then it reads, and then it reads, and then it says, oh, I've reached the length, and then I stop. So this will be the thing before the length will be the where I'm stopping from. So this is pretty much what we are going to try and do. So we don't know exactly how many, so we need to use a while loop, meaning that while that condition is true, what condition is that? While fs dot position, where I currently am, is less than my fs dot length, my file stream's length, or this file's length, this one over here. So while it's less than that length, then what should happen? We read from the file. So we use deserialize. So we say bf dot deserialize, then you pass in the stream, the stream, right, which is fs. So it's going to deserialize, right? It's going to return an object. So remember, this returns um, um, of type object. So it's going to return something of type object, but we need to cast it, right? And this is a function. Deserialize is a function. It returns something. So you need to say equals to. So you can go over it and see. See, it says function. And look at what the function returns. as object. Like you see, I didn't lie. It returns object. So we need to copy that, right, and cast it. How do we cast it? So remember, I expect to return an object. So it depends. Let me see. It depends if, yeah, it depends on what object we found. Yeah. So now I need to use that code, that advanced code that I was writing. So I need to say if I try to deserialize, right? But then I need to store it inside something else, because if I use it inside an if statement, it will deserialize twice, meaning it will call it twice, which is a problem. So I need to dim a local variable as this will be the, okay, I can't call it object. I'll call it obj. No, what am I saying? Dim obj as object that is equals to that, because it returns object. Then this object that's returned, I need to check its type. So I need to use type of. So if type of obj is what, a tank, because I'm only looking for tanks, then I cast this obj to a tank, because that means I found the tank. So since I found the tank, now I can cast it or convert it to a tank, because I'm 100% sure that I found a tank, because I've used the type of to check if this is a tank. So since it is a tank, I can, and I need to store it in a variable. So dim tank as tank is equals to, and remember, you don't have to use the new keyword, because we are returning an object that's already stored somewhere. So I don't have to say as new. Don't do that. When you say new, you're creating a new object, a different object, which is not what we want here. So like I said, I'm gonna use try cast, because I don't want to handle exceptions. So what object am I casting is obj. I'm casting it to what? To a tank. So try casting or try converting this object to a tank. It might return nothing. So I need to check if it's not nothing. So if tank is nothing, right? It can be nothing, but I don't want it when it's nothing. I want it when it's not nothing, meaning it's something. So not tank is nothing. Then we handle that case, we do something. So what do we do when it's not it's not it's not nah it's not nothing? We we compare the determined level, we find a maximum. So remember that formula, that code for finding a maximum that you've been doing this whole time. So I'm gonna dim max as integer, because I think level is an integer, right? If I'm not mistaken, let me check tank. No, it's inside hero. Yeah, determine level. Okay, it's a double, but they want you to store it, determine level. The actual help level is an integer, but no, no, it will be stored as a double inside the file. Yeah, because remember, if you look at my display method, if we scroll down and look at the display method, remember I used determine level, and I even rounded it off, so it's stored as as a double. So I'm going to say double, and then my max will start off as 0.0. And then remember the formula for a maximum. We always assume the first one is the highest. And then we check if the current highest that we've assumed is the highest is not the highest, then we update it. How do we check that? We check if the current max is less than the current value that we've retrieved from the file, or the current value you're looking at. So it's like, for example, when you go to a beauty contest, when when the contestants come out, the very first person, the judges would assume that's the most beautiful person so far, because they haven't seen other candidates. Then when the next person after that first candidate comes out, which is the second candidate, when the second candidate comes out, they're like, oh, now they can compare. They have something to compare it with. So that's why, okay, for me, I'm going to use zero, just 0.0 is my first assumption that that's the highest. That it's easier that way. Then once I've found this, now I can compare. I can say if my current maximum, so I need to update the maximum if a greater level was found. right? And then I need to update my maximum. So how do I check? I check my current maximum. If my current maximum is less than the tank, remember I've retrieved the tank dot determine level is less than the current determined level that I've found, then what should happen? Update the max to be that current level. So tank dot come on. Uh that's why IntelliSense sometimes is a problem. So update that maximum, and then let's check something. They didn't tell you, they just said display the highest tank, display determine tank with the highest level and display. Oh, so they just want you to determine the tank with the highest level and display it. So obviously, we need to find the tank with the highest level. So how do I keep track of which tank is the tank with the highest level? What I can do is there's multiple ways. What I can do is this is the simplest way. I can create a tank instance outside the while loop like this, right? Then I initialize it to here. Tank is equals to trycast. What happens is that by the time this while loop ends, when it reaches end while, this tank variable will be storing the tank with the highest. No, it won't. No, it won't. Yeah, it won't. We need another clever way. It won't actually store the tank with the highest. So if you want it to actually store the tank with the highest, when it comes here, right here, when it comes here, we have to actually update the tank to that current tank. So I know it's a bit redundant, but okay, I can do this. I can call this max tank, right? Let's call it max tank, and then leave this one as dim tank as tank. Let's leave it like that. And then here, the max tank would now be taking that current tank is equals to tank. So now I keep track of also which tank has the highest level. And then I keep updating, checking the determined level. They say once you found it, you should what? Display it. So I'm going to come here and then minimize this. Okay, this is a bit small, but yeah, let's try to make it fit in there. So let me do this. Okay, I need a label for this. So I need to make this a bit up and then put a label. So label, I take this over here and then I enlarge it. So I'm going to scroll down and say text size. Um, auto size, that's fine. Where's text size? Where's text size? Okay, let me scroll up. Let me check it carefully. I think it's font. Yeah, under font, if I'm not mistaken. So I'm gonna go under font, and then I'm just gonna choose bold oblique because I want it to be bold and oblique, and then choose 14. You see that it's a bit larger now. Then I change the text to the actual text, which is tank with highest level, and then done, and then make it a bit larger. So we're gonna compare these values, right? You can just simply check. We'll check here which one is the highest, then we check if it's the one being displayed here. So they said you should display it. So that makes tank variable. Remember, that's why I'm storing that instance of makes tank so that I can call the display method for that tank. So txt output dot text. Here I do not necessarily want to append text. I want to delete, erase, put in a new tank. So max tank dot display is used, and now pointer Okay, this might throw in now. So I'm going to set it to, let me set it to nothing, right? Before before using it. But then you see max tech might actually be nothing, so I need to make sure that it's not nothing. So make sure, so there's a lot of error handling that needs to take place. Make sure max tank is not nothing, meaning it's something. So if not, so not, and then max tank is nothing. Then if we found something, then we display. Else, if there's nothing found, then we won't display. That means there wasn't any tank. So I can just put an else and say txt output dot text and just say no tank was stored in the file. Because if we couldn't display the maximum tank, because obviously even if there's one tank, there has to be displayed, it has to be displayed. But if it's not there, that means there was no tank in the file. So let's run this and have our fingers crossed that everything will run perfectly. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to navigate to my folder, right? I'm going to go to users and then my username and then repos. Is it source? Yeah, source. And then repos. This is where all the project should be. Oh, I saved it on desktop. Okay, yeah. I made things easier for myself. So what I would do is for those who want the diagram, so you see this FS position, I'll save this and then create, it's still the same PNG, right? So let me just double check if it did change. This PNG did update. This is nice. Yeah, it did update. What a cool feature. So I'm gonna copy this. So don't ask me for the PNG. You see where I'm saving it? I'm saving it within this folder so that it comes with the project. And then let's test it out. So before we do that, let me right click and show you. Where's that file now? My eyes. So Notepad plus plus. You see it's empty. But let's run it, right? So I'm gonna run it here so that you can see the actual file. So initialize, because I want to find the maximum, let me choose three heroes, right? One is a wizard, the two tanks. So one, what's the name of wizard one? So wizard, right? Wizard D, base damage at what, and then max magic points, and then two is the tank. So there's tanky, 19, 88. Then two, the name for hero three, which is another tank. So my MT M tank, I'm gonna put M tank, and then let's display the information. Um, did I change something? It's supposed to append, or maybe it doesn't. Oh, I think I need to make it scrollable. It is appending, but it doesn't fit the whole screen. I need to make it scrollable, but I'll see how to do that. Saving to file, I was supposed to output a message to say successfully saved to files. I'll output that later. So file could not find heroes.dat. So let me see, didn't I call it heroes? Yeah, it is called heroes. Mm, okay, it's not finding it. That's weird. Oh, so heroes is within. Let me. Mm, but no, it's within this fold. But it's within the fold. It should find it. So that means I must specify my folder name. I don't know, but let's see. Before I do that, after I've closed the, I need to output a message and say successfully written to file so that the user can get feedback. It's important to get feedback. So I'm going to say, let me try and do, I don't know why it's not picking it up. I don't know whether it wants me to specify that it's within this folder. So let me copy my folder's name, the one with the project. So gonna click rename so that it shows me the option to select the file name. Then I'm gonna type it in here and say, I think I can say forward slash. I think forward slash should suffice. Should suffice. Let me try that. So let me make one tank, right? So Wheezy, and then display information, and then save. Could not find the path to C drive users desktop. Oh, so it assumes that, which is a problem. So how come it's not picking it up? Because if it's look, it should be able to pick it up. Let me try and do this. Let me say within the current folder, right? Which is my project folder. Let's try and do that. So since this is causing an issue, let me try to run it and see if it crashes again. Oh, I see. Yeah, but it's fine now. So it wants us to, you see where it wants you to put it, which is a very weird place. Let me save the heroes, but now it's actually locating the full path. So that dot backslash means the current folder, which is my current project. So it wants you to put it within the bin folder, within the debug folder. So I need to do that, or else it's not gonna find it. So I need to say heroes.dat transfer it to bin and then debug, because in the when you say current, right? When you say current folder, or when you say local folder, it means that it's where it'll be within the folder where the executable will be saved, which is the debug folder. So I totally forgot to change that. So wizard, and then I'm gonna call this guy Wheezy, and then two, I'm gonna call this guy Tanky. 56, 77, and then tank 2, this is the name, so we'll call this guy tank 2, so that we know this is tank 2. I'm not sure which one is going to be the highest. Oh yeah, we couldn't see. Okay, but let's see, this is the determined damage. Okay, this is we can partially see the determined damage. So the one who must be the highest is the one with 333. This one has this one is the damage of 204, which is smaller than this damage. It's not, is it the damage? No, it's the level. Where's the level? Okay, this is 4.9. I can't see that previous one, so we just have to assume it works. Object reference not set to an instance of an object. BF was nothing. Oh, me and forgetting. I need to instantiate my binary format. BF is equals to new binary format. See mistakes. Even here, BF is equals to new binary format. I forgot to instantiate my binary format. But let me see, before we do that, how come it's not scrollable? Let me see, maybe there's another one. Let's choose another, because this is just text field, right? Text box. Let me see if there should be a scrollable feature. Allow drop. Is it this one? I think it could be the one. Yeah, it could be the one. Allow drop. Not sure, but it could be the one, because I want it to be scrollable. If it's not, then we have to look for a different one. I think it's a scroll something. It has to be called scroll something. So 3 heroes, 1 wizard, Wheezy, base damage. Then 2 tanky. Then number 2 again, tank 2. Then display information. Yeah, it's not doing what I wanted to do. Let me look for a different one. There should be, I think it's a list. Is it a list box? Yeah, I think it's a list box or a list view. They work exactly the same way, right? Yeah, let me try a list box or a list view. So let's say list box. Okay. It doesn't look like it's going to show a list. Let's try list view. And then I'll give it the same name. Members. Oh, okay. It's not what I expected. Okay, this is not what I'm expecting. This is not what I want. Let's see. A rich text box provides advanced text entry and editing features such as the character and formatting. List box. I think it's combo. Is it combo box? Yeah, I think it's combo box. No, combo box. It's not. It's like a select inside HTML. I don't want that one. So seems like the only one we can use is a text box. So we need to find a clever way to work with the text box. So let me put it back. It's called txt output, right? So I'm gonna put it back. So text box, and then make it multi-line so it can support multiple lines. And then I need to put back that name, txt output. So txt output, and then where's the section whereby you can tell it to show to expand. Uh, Scroll bars. Oh yeah, I think it's scroll bars. Let's say it's horizontal. Let me say vertical. Or you can put both. There are scroll bars. Remember, horizontal is like a straight line from. Think of it in the Cartesian plane. It's like from the mid the what's that the origin. It's like from the origin to go and you travel about the x-axis. That's horizontal. Vertical is like from the origin and you travel about the y-axis, whether upwards or downwards. So I want both, so I'm gonna choose both. So there's the scroll bars. So they were actually called scroll bars. So yeah, that's fixed now. So now it will put the scroll bar if there's more than one, there's multiple things that are stored. So let me put back. So Wheezy, and then, okay, so number 2 is tank, right? It's tank, and then I'm going to say, enter the name. I'm gonna call this guy Tanky, and then 78, 66, and then 2, tank 2. This one I'm gonna put very small values so that you can get it different. Yeah, I see scroll bars. There they are. So now I can see all of the data. And then save to a file, successfully saved to the file. And then since it's successfully saved to the file, before we try and read, let's refresh. So if I refresh, You see that it's now 2 kilobytes, meaning that it has been stored, something has been stored in the file. Remember that this does not exist anymore since I've relocated it. So I'm going to right click and go inside the edit. You see, there's everything. But you see, it does actually, this is cool. It does actually show what's stored. You see, health level, blah blah blah, hero, all this thing. So it does show what's stored. So there's the binary file. So now I need to read from that binary file. And there's three. This is cool. It actually does show you how many there are stored. Visual Basic does, it's cool. You see that there's three heroes. So there's actually three, and that's true. We stored three. So in terms of base damage, determine level, which one is the highest? So tank number one is 8.83. Tank number two is 1.73. So I'm expecting tanky to be displayed. So let's display the one with the highest, which is true. Tanky. Okay, I made a mistake. I reused the same one. You see, it said whatever was already there. But it's true. Tank is the one with the highest. So that's the one being displayed. And then that's pretty much all you had to do. So I need to change this to txt highest and then display the actual results inside the txt highest. Right? Or you can call it txt highest level. So I'm gonna scroll down here and change this to txt highest, and then I'm gonna change that to txt highest. And then that's pretty much all you had to do. And then you have to simulate, that's the last thing. You have to simulate a battle. This is homework for you guys. Try to do the simulate. So yeah, thanks for watching. See you in the next video.